we move over to Survivor Series, which will now be Survivor Series WarGames, which I almost wonder if they'll just take the MP3 file of William Regal and they can just put it into the video package.
They do own it.
They could use it. So they announced today through the Ringer that they will be ditching the Raw versus SmackDown concept, and in its place, they will have 2 WarGames matches, a men's and women's match. And on top of that, Paul Levesque was interviewed by The Ringer, and when he was asked about a trademark of WarGames being blood, his answer was, "The world has changed. The world has evolved. I don't think it's necessary. There is still blood in WWE, but there are medical personnel to check on wrestlers if there is an inadvertent cut. If we have talent that gets cut open, usually you'll see them roll out and they'll get looked at and make sure that nothing's dangerous. I'm just of the opinion now, given the state of the world and the pandemic, and at the end of the day, what we do is dangerous enough without intentionally making it more dangerous. Yes, we did feature bleeding for a long period of time, but we've changed that practice and it's irresponsible to go back." Mm-hmm. And that seems like a very specific edict that Paul Levesque wants to maintain, and another like differentiating aspect from AEW that is not shy about using blood.
Right. Yeah, whereas AEW, I think in recent years has kind of made a name and really embraced the fact that they are blood and guts.
And I'm sure we'll see blood on Wednesday's show. I'm sure that at some point we will get blood on Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, nothing really changes here. This has like always been the company policy. They've been a bit more relaxed about it, and I think in recent years. But and certainly with Brock Lesnar versus Randy Orton, let's not mention about let's forget about that one. But for the most part,
Hunter's like biggest matches like during his heyday. I mean, he was never shy about incorporating blood for a lot of his big matches. Like
even once the edict had been in place.
No, I'm talking about more when it was just, it was
when it was fine to do it. Yeah. I mean, I think it's the right thing to say if number one, your company has chosen to be in this position. And number two, I think if you're a large, like multi-million-dollar corporation, I actually feel like I wish more wrestling companies would actually take the stance. I personally kind of feel like, I think blood on occasion is definitely great for dramatic effect, but I definitely think like it could be overused, and I personally feel like AEW has overused it. I think you only bring it up for like, obviously like when it's a story that really demands it. But it is dangerous. Like I think we're ignoring, like because we're so used to it that this is not something you get in most art forms or pieces of entertainment. People just swapping blood willingly, voluntarily with each other.
Yeah,
for performance.
Yeah, there certainly is that, and I feel like I definitely feel like that is kind of the side I am on, especially when you saw the very first Nigel McGuinness documentary that he did. And just talking about the fact that he was not going to be in any ring where they were cutting themselves, and there is that concern that comes with it. At the same time, you are promoting these matches, and this is always a common complaint when WarGames comes up, when Hell in a Cell comes up, and I think for a portion of your audience, I don't think blood is make or break. But if you came up, and WarGames very much plays to an audience that came up on Jim Crockett Promotions, where this was introduced and popularized, and these were bloodbaths a lot of the time. So that's sort of what they equate with like your big cage match blow off.
To a section of the audience, and I would contend, a section of the audience that I think is that they're not necessarily trying to attract. The NXT WarGames that have taken place, they haven't had blood, and have people really complained too much about those? Like from what I gathered, they were always pretty critically well received.
Yeah, they were totally different styles of matches where it was, you took the roof off and you introduced, different stuff like that. I don't think blood is necessary in these matches. I think you can do them in a compelling way. But I also see like there's audiences that, you're trying to do both things. You're trying to promote these like violent matches that, I mean, just look at like the 50+ numbers. Like their audience, like there's a sizable audience that they grew up, and that was their expectation of the big blow off style of match that you have all of this. And that's not to say that, accidental blood is like it's not like we don't see blood ever in WWE. And you've seen the extreme, to me, that's the worst option, where these guys just try to blast each other hard way. And to me, that's the worst option, when guys are just trying to bleed on their own, and you're potentially doing significant damage by trying to open up your partner.
I'm not sensing WWE like so much like promoting like Hell in a Cell even as like, you know, like an ultimately like violent, you know, match. Like I don't get the sense that they're promoting the matches based off of violence, even like Extreme Rules. Like we know what Extreme in WWE entails. It's usually just like weapons and shit, right?
Well, that was the drawing aspect of Hell in a Cell, when it was, you know, it was promoted as that, and it was a big deal. And over time, I mean, it was, I think, a combination of factors, doing so many of them. You put multiples on shows, but it was like, it sort of just became like, it was not the type of match that was this, that had the same appeal, I think, as like those earlier years. When you announced Hell in a Cell, it meant a difference for that month's pay-per-view.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, these days I get the sense, you know, it's just more about the spectacle of seeing the structure, whether it be Hell in a Cell or in this case, WarGames. That to me is the most interesting one. I mean, we're finally getting a main roster stadium size show. I suppose the NXT ones were like that too, but like, you know, it's a stadium size show that you would think would have a double ring setup.
First time on the main roster that they're doing it. And yeah. I think it's a welcome change to ditch the Raw versus SmackDown concept. I think this has been a dead gimmick for years, and I'm glad they identified that problem. I think and this is also,
everybody has identified that problem. The only person keeping it in place was one guy who didn't see any reason to change it.
Well, and this is also one where this is a clear move that is done strictly for quality of show, because this was a show that sold out immediately. Your money is guaranteed from Peacock every month. Like, you are introducing this concept when there's not a whole lot that you gain. You're not going to sell any more tickets when you've sold out. You've got your guaranteed money. This is strictly having a better show in their mind, and something that is going to be more compelling in their view to promote, rather than the tired Raw versus SmackDown theme that they obviously don't want to go through for 4 weeks, or 3 weeks actually, because this is sandwiched right after the Saudi Arabia show before the end of the year. So it's like 3 weeks between big shows.
It's Hunter pushing his exact creative vision that he had developing. He had been developing an NXT up into the main roster. And yeah, he could have, I guess, you know, regurgitated the same cookie cutter stuff that, you know, Vince was doing for years on end successfully. But he's brought a number of overhauls. And I suppose, is this the latest one, or what is the latest one? What did we see on this show that he brought back? Brought something back.
Brought back what, you're referring to WarGames as his latest idea he has brought back?
Man, there's something else. Anyway, please we'll get to it in the review, I'm sure.